think you already know how to cut a watermelon neatly and beautifully? The truth is, most of us are still cutting it the traditional way, getting our hands messy, juice spilling everywhere, and often missing out on the sweetest part of the fruit. Don't worry, in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 incredibly smart and simple ways to cut a watermelon that will save you time, preserve its sweetness, and make your watermelon platter look more impressive than ever. Especially at the end of the video, I'll reveal a tip for presenting watermelon as beautifully as in a 5-star restaurant, guaranteed to make anyone want to dig in right away. Ready? Let's start cutting watermelon in a simpler and more creative way from today. If you want to cut a watermelon in a way that looks good, is easy to do, and still makes an impression, this is the ideal method. First, lay the watermelon horizontally on a cutting board and slice it in half lengthwise. Then, place one half face down. Next, use a knife to carve V-shaped grooves along the 2 long edges of the watermelon, cutting from the inside out. Watermelon is an excellent source of vitamins A and C, which help improve eyesight, boost immunity, and enhance skin health. With its low calorie content and 0 fat, it's also a great choice for people on a diet and the elderly. After that, make a horizontal cut through the middle of the watermelon. Then gently push both sides of the rind outward with your hands. The red flesh inside will naturally separate into evenly shaped triangle pieces, looking like wings spreading open. No molds, no special tools, no advanced skills needed. Just a few simple steps, and you'll have a clean, beautiful, and easy-to-eat plate of watermelon, perfect for family gatherings, hosting guests, or serving as a dessert for kids. Let's move on to the second method. First, take one of the watermelon halves you just cut and slice it lengthwise into 3 or 4 sections, depending on the size of the fruit. Then, place one section on the cutting board and use a knife to trim off both pointed ends. This makes shaping easier and helps the slices look more even and attractive. Next, place your knife about 2 to 3 centimeters from the left edge and make a lengthwise cut along the watermelon. Be sure to only cut through the rind, not into the flesh. Do the same on the right edge. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below. It's amazing that we can connect from all over the world. After that, gently use a knife or your hands to separate the rind on both sides from the watermelon flesh, leaving the strip of rind in the middle as a handle. Now, simply slice downward from the top, cutting the watermelon flesh into pieces about 2 to 3 centimeters thick. Each slice will have a small strip of rind in the center, making them look like mini popsicles, easy to hold, mess-free, and super eye-catching. You can arrange the watermelon sticks leaning on a plate or stack them up, depending on your aesthetic preference. This cutting method is really convenient and is sure to delight both kids and adults. Next is method number 3. For this method, take a quarter of the watermelon, place the flesh side down on the cutting board, and trim off both pointed ends to make shaping easier. Next, cut the watermelon into bite-sized pieces. Then use a knife to slice off about 2/3 of the rind from each piece to separate it from the flesh. You should also remove the white part near the rind to create a cleaner and more defined shape. After that, place the peeled watermelon piece on the cutting board. Then use a knife to cut 2 diagonal lines from the center, forming a V shape like this. The trimmed rind can be used as a base to hold up the watermelon slice or as a centerpiece decoration on another watermelon platter, adding a lively and eye-catching touch to the overall presentation. This display method is not only easy to do, but also adds a fresh and creative feel that both kids and adults will enjoy. You can also combine it with other watermelon cutting methods to create a visually appealing and professional-looking fruit platter right at home. If you're into creativity, tip 4 will definitely be your favorite. Start by taking a long piece of watermelon, about 1/4 of the whole fruit, and placing it on the cutting board. Then, use a knife to separate the rind from the flesh, but make sure to leave about 1 centimeter attached at both pointed ends so the rind and flesh stay connected and don't fall apart. Next, make a straight cut across the top of the watermelon flesh, starting from the pointed end like this. Now, you can easily lift the entire piece of watermelon flesh away from the rind while still keeping its shape intact. Use a knife to cut the watermelon flesh into bite-sized pieces, but leave the pieces in place on the board, keeping their original position. Then, gently flip the rind back over the top so that all the watermelon pieces are neatly tucked inside. Finally, carefully transfer the whole piece onto a plate. Then use your hands to gently push the pieces to each side. In just a few minutes, you'll have a beautifully arranged, clean, and elegant watermelon platter that looks as good as it tastes, sure to make anyone want to dig in right away. Now, let's try tip number 5. Start by cutting the watermelon in half lengthwise. Then peel off the green outer skin to make shaping easier. Next, use a knife to lightly carve 2 parallel grooves down the center of the watermelon, about 1.5 centimeters apart. This will be the butterfly's antennae. Then, place the watermelon face down on the cutting board and carve 3 large curved cuts, 1 in the middle and 1 on each side of the antenna. These will form the wings. Cut deep enough to shape the wings without breaking the inside flesh. Finally, just cut the watermelon into bite-sized pieces, and when you look back, you'll see a bright red watermelon butterfly appear right before your eyes. And don't forget to try it out, because sometimes a little creativity can bring a lot of joy. If you're looking for a more impressive way to present, this final tip is for you. First, take a quarter of a watermelon and place it on the cutting board. Then cut it in half horizontally into 2 equal parts. Next, use a knife to cut from the pointed end down, but don't cut all the way through, leave about 1 to 2 centimeters intact. Then, cut down to separate the watermelon flesh from the rind and set the flesh aside. Now, trim off the white core of the rind to make shaping easier and more aesthetically pleasing. For the watermelon flesh you just separated, trim off the pointed end to make handling easier. Then, make a cut down the middle, leaving about 0.5 centimeters uncut so it doesn't separate completely. Continue making vertical cuts from the flesh to the pointed end of the rind, creating long strips that look like flower petals or decorative patterns. Now, flip the watermelon rind over and gently fold the 2 sides of the flesh inward to shape it. You can secure it with toothpicks. This part will become a decorative highlight on your fruit platter. Next, handle the watermelon flesh you set aside at the beginning. Cut it lengthwise into long strips. Then slice those into bite-sized, neat, and easy-to-hold pieces. Arrange them evenly on a plate and combine with the shaped rind either in the center or on the side to enhance the overall presentation. The result is a watermelon platter that's not only delicious and refreshing, but also extremely eye-catching and artistic, perfect for special parties, gatherings, or simply to make everyday meals more fun and lively. That brings us to the end of today's video. I hope these little tips will help you cut watermelon faster, neater, and more beautifully. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss other great tips. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Wishing you a happy day full of positive energy. See you in the next video.